hlavně ty favorites, ty to můžeš vyklikat na čo chceš jít, zapne to náš krásný ten zoznam jako perfektní.
To bylo na poslední chvíli.
A najužitečnější feature, ne?
No, právě. Ale jo, tak aspoň něco. Neviděl jsi náhodou tady někde?
No, koukám, že kde je Denis, že...
Denis, no, jeden se teďka omlouval ze spodu, zde z 207, teďka ve 12 máme taky to, že je nemocný, že nemůže.
Já, ty kokos.
Takže možná Denis se nedopadl stejně.
No právě, že nie, Denis ten vypije 20 piv a nic mu není, takže...
Má půl minuty, no.
Okej. No, to bylo ľudí. Ne, neviděl jsem ho, takže...
No, tak počkáme. Má hodinu, tak.
Počkáme, můžeme zkusit napísat, no nějak, že...
Ale myslím na Telegramu, jestli ho takhle zkusíme tohle, ale... Possible.
You reached them. I can't answer the phone at the moment. Sorry, folks, we cannot find Dennis Gilmore.
So maybe we have an hour break until our speaker will show up.
I messaged him on Telegram and I saw him earlier, so he's definitely here.
Okay.
Excuse my Claudius, I was playing with Lego.
That's much better than what I was doing.
To ask you, do you want the presentation in Spanish or in English? Dennis asking. Spanish? Ah, the best is Czech.
So maybe voting, hands up who want it in Spanish, Czech,
Yeah.
English,
Oh. Sorry.
Without a rawhide.
All right, can you all hear me okay? Oh. No entiendo. Hola, me llamo Dennis y mi charla es moviendo a todo el mundo al rawhide. I'm not really doing it in Spanish. The English translation of that is, let's move everyone to rawhide, or moving everyone to rawhide. I'm like, what? You crazy? Well, maybe. But the aim of the talk is to tell you things that we're going to be working on changing in Fedora over the next period of time, like 6 months or so, to largely incorporate a lot of the Factory 2.0 stuff and make rawhide be the place where developers and users and stuff want to be. So for real, it's making rawhide be a viable option for day-to-day use, making sure we don't have unbootable systems by testing the kernel all the time and getting extra testing. So as soon as a rawhide kernel is built, we test it, and if it doesn't meet some set of criteria, we kick it out. No more broken dependencies. So if you push a update to rawhide, and say you're the libpng maintainer, and you're like, oh, I'm just going to push this build and build it, and it happens to change the provides, and the so name bumps, and half the distribution is no longer installable, we'll have, we'll kick it out and deal with that. I also plan to no longer do alpha composers from Fedora 27 on. So we'll just have a beta and a final, and that will be it. And hopefully that leaves more development time so that you guys can then add more features and do more in Fedora for each release. So how can we do that? The main way we do that is CI, CI, CI. We can't, for a long time, Fedora's done way too many things, too manually, too often, and it doesn't scale. 3 years ago, I was the entirety of Fedora release engineering, and I could only do X amount. We now have 5, 6 people full-time on doing Fedora release engineering and helping us get more. And we're delivering a lot more. We still struggle to deliver it. And we just struggle to add new things because we don't have the time to do the project work because we're doing the same old things over and over and over again. Those things need to be automated. For dealing with things like broken dependencies, if Python 3, rather than request side tags, like say Python 3 comes along and says, we're going to go to Python 3.8 now. They could just build it. We would automatically, in our ideal world, we'll automatically set up a side tag, move that build into there, rebuild everything against the new Python when it is at least the base of the operating system, like Anaconda, Workstation, Atomic Host, server, the base core pieces, when they're no longer broken, is when we merge that over and bring that in and push that out to everyone. With CI checking to make sure that it actually works and doesn't cause you to have a broken Anaconda that doesn't function for anyone. In order to get to that, we need to have things like PDC, which we have today, but we need to put a lot more data into it. We need to know what's in the minimal runtime for Anaconda, what things go into Workstation, what things go into the server, what goes into the Atomic Host, what goes into the different Docker containers, because then we can more quickly check as soon as something changes that's going to cause a change in those objects. Ideally, with that, we can then automatically start to rebuild things using a policy engine. There's a thing I got told about yesterday. It was Project Rowboat, which is an effort by QE to bring tests that are run internally for RHEL into Fedora and make sure that the tests work there. So one thing we need to do is make it dead simple for everybody to write tests. So you hit a bug, you write a test that covers it, check it into dist-git test area, and that gets run every time your build happens now. And we'll build up a big amount of testing so that the CI actually works and is useful and gives us a rawhide that is consistently stable and working all the time. And at the end, more CI, CI, CI. It also, we're doing a little bit of continuous delivery for Atomic today, but we actually don't have any CI on it. Every 15 minutes, we've got a cron job that builds Atomic Host in rawhide against what's in the rawhide build route, but we're not actually testing to make sure that that's right. There's some, it broke at one point, and people came and hey, this is broken. We fixed the bug and got it going again, but we're not doing as good of a job as we should be in making sure that all of that stuff happens automatically. And the cron job runs every 15 minutes. We build Atomic Host for AR64, 32-bit ARM, and x86 64, which is more than we build Atomic Host for in releases. But it's kind of brain dead. We don't build it when we know that something in it's changed, because we don't have that data today, but we're working on getting all of that in place. So we want to make less artifacts to do more good. And by that we mean do things like build only when changed. If we, like today a rawhide compose has XFCE live CD, KDE, we build everything, Docker base image, cloud images, the whole swath of what we make in Fedora. We do it every day because it's kind of simple, but it's a bit of a sledgehammer. We could, and we should be, only building those artifacts when something changed. So, an XFCE package is updated. Let's build the XFCE live CD. Let's test it, make sure that it's right. If it's not, then we can file bugs and kick it out and deal with it. But then it also makes the composers much faster, because rather than making a whole bunch of things, it's just gathering a bunch of output. And by doing less, kind of more often, we can do more good. We can do more things. We can deliver more. We can test more, new deliverables, new artifacts. And yes, sir?
Just to be clear, you're talking about making fewer artifacts each time there's a composed event, but having far more composed events, right?
Yeah. So the question was, you're talking about making less artifacts each time there's a composer event, but having more composers? Is that right?
I mean, there wouldn't be composers,
Oh.
but you know what I mean, right? There would be more times when an artifact appeared.
Right, more times when an artifact appeared, which, like maybe we'll make workstation 3 times a day. Maybe we'll make it 5 times a day. Who knows? Maybe we'll make it 10 times a day. Depends on how much the stuff changes. But then when we do the compose event, we're grabbing the things that we know are good because they've gone through testing, and we're pushing that out to the mirrors. So in theory, if XFCE only changes, something in the XFCE live CD only changes once a week, we push that XFCE live CD out, and it sits on the mirrors for a week before it gets changed, which results in less churn on the mirrors. The mirrors will then, in theory, be able to serve out that content much more. And mirrors don't like when we churn things on them too much, because that costs them I/O cycles, and there's all sorts of things there. So the idea is to actually make the things more often, deliver them a little less, and make for a better experience. But then we want to do more projects to make less work. So we want to make the pieces separately. We want to automate things like configuration management. Today, we have a manually configured Punji config that does rawhide. And when a new spin comes along, we need to go and manually edit that config file. When we need to change some part of the definition of what's workstation, we need to go in and manually edit config files. We need to manually edit kickstart files. We need to manually edit the JSON files that define atomic host, the workstation OS tree. I had the idea the other day that it would be really cool if we had a OS tree-based vert host that has the stuff in it to run as a node in OpenStack or overt, and you can really easily add it, and then update it independently, which would be really cool. But in order to do that today, if we want to make, say, have a compose of sorts that does workstation, or in Matthew's vision that he keeps touting about, where he wants the workstation to we have the schedule and workstation shipping here, but KDE is not ready for 2 weeks. We can ship KDE later. That today means completely separate compose with a completely separate manual set of configuration with a completely separate manual running of the compose, which is not going to scale. So in order to get to the world where we can do more and get more things out, we need to do a lot of work to make it easier to do that. And PDC is Product Definition Center. It is supposed to be the source of what is in Fedora, what defines Fedora. So we're going to be working on pulling out of PDC making the configs on the fly and making it so that it's not a manual error-prone thing to do. And that will get us to the bikeshed, which is a magical universe where we can argue about the color of the bikeshed, or we can figure out how to do more things. Atomic is becoming more central to a lot of pieces. We replaced the cloud working group with the atomic working group. And how does Fedora's future look? Today, we really, we don't know, and it's really hard for many things to change because we've got a lot of big monolithic pieces with a lot of technical debt. So in the end, I'm hoping that we get to a place where we get rid of that. We do more testing, we get everything out rawhide is the place. A benefit that we get from that, we have no alpha, great, it gives us another 4 weeks to do development. We keep rawhide more stable, then you as developers will be using rawhide because you'll want to use rawhide because that's where you can go, you can get the latest bits. At some point, we're going to have to probably say, rawhide is going away. We no longer have rawhide. We'll have, maybe we'll call it the bikeshed, or maybe we'll call it something else. Who knows? We can argue about that later. But at some point, I really feel like we're going to have to rename rawhide to something else because there's a lot of baggage with the name rawhide. People are like, oh, it eats babies, or kills kittens, or does all sorts of bad things. It throws the baby out with the bathwater. There's a lot of negative connotation with the name rawhide. Getting to that point, I kind of see that we'll end up probably redefining what we consider Fedora, and not potentially and likely not actually doing releases anymore. You'll have the development stream, the bikeshed stream. We'll have a stabilization stream where we take things that we're like, this is getting pretty good. This is something that we want to make available for the general populace, and the people that are slightly more adventurous. So the rawhide stage will be for the people like Fedora packages developers, people that are like technologists that want the latest and greatest of everything all the time, but they want it to be stable. Today, a lot of people do that by, particularly maintainers, they use Fedora 25, use Fedora 24, and they push everything to everywhere because they want it all stable, except they want this latest piece that they want to keep, that they care about, they want the latest greatest. The problem with that is, it's a bit of a misnomer. Everybody does it. The amount of churn that we have in updates in Fedora is ridiculous. On day 1 of Fedora 25, we had over 5 gig of updates that we pushed out onto the mirrors with the first updates push, which is insanity. We're pushing so many updates that it's ridiculous. So when we get to the point where we have rawhide stable and you're all using it, we can then look at going, well, you know what? I don't need to push my thing to rawhide or to Fedora 25, Fedora 26. And when we consider something to be really stable, we can then push it to the users, or it's a bug fix. And so users, instead of every day getting bombarded with, hey, your Fedora install wants to install 267 packages, they'll get once a week. Oh, we've got 20 packages for you. We'll give a much better experience to the users that don't care to have the latest and greatest all the time. So that's my big goal. Yeah, Stephen? So the question was, we were talking about making the Fedora updates as to a service pack type of thing. Maybe. Maybe it'll just be service packs, or maybe it'll be monthly batched updates, or maybe it'll be something else. There's still a lot of questions in the air as to how it's going to look, and it's going to take time for us to get there. But I think the first step is making rawhide stable, because once developers start moving to it, it's the place where everyone wants to be. And then it disincentivizes, well, not disincentivizes, but if you're running rawhide and you're getting your bits, do you really want to push the updates? And so I think there's a natural flow where it'll slow down the churn of things in the stable Fedoras.
So this is further out in the future, but in the ideal world with modularity and containers and flatpaks, it means that if somebody cares about just a specific application, let's say you're a designer and you care about GIMP and Inkscape, and you do want everything to be stable, but you want the newest ones of those things, it would be much easier to opt into just the newer of those things.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have all the infrastructure for that yet, but that's one of the things when you're talking about that. As a packager of, say, photography software, I do want to get. I'm excited. I want to get the new releases out. I want to get that to my users as fast as possible, not just the rawhide users.
Right.
And I can hear in the back of my head a lot of Fedora packagers saying, but I don't want to not send out those updates. I'm doing that on purpose. Right. So part of the idea of modularity is that we can let users decide on a per application basis how fast they want to go as well. Right.
Absolutely. So let me just repeat it for the camera. or at least summarize it. So Matthew is saying that in the way to get the latest and greatest when you really want to opt into it is something like Flatpak, which then makes the Workstation OS tree much more attractive because it's a stable core of applications, and then you can pick and choose the other ones that you want to get and be able to run. But I mean, the goal is not to push OS tree Workstation, but that is another option in getting things. But users will be able to selectively pick the latest and greatest of stuff from rawhide via Flatpaks, or so it's not like you have to. You still have to want to push that because that's available to people. Yeah.
So you mentioned that we definitely need more CI for all of this.
Yes.
I mean, right now, my problem, for example, I have been trying to run our CI test on rawhide, but the problem is that if something bad happens in rawhide, I have no way to prevent that package from being in rawhide.
Right.
And I'm due to wait for the developer to resolve their rawhide bugs, which doesn't really often happen.
Okay.
And so I'm afraid that if rawhide is considered to be stable and used by everybody, where is the phase between the package is built, runs through the CI, and then gets to the rawhide repository? Right now it happens with dependencies. It doesn't even get to the repository.
Yeah. So the question was that running CI and quite often today on rawhide, things will break because of dependencies breaking, and you've been unable to run the test until you can, the package, either you get hold of the package or they notice it and they fix the issues, and then things start moving again. And how do we get from the model where we just, we keep rawhide stable, but how do we get the new content in? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
where's the phase where my CI could provide the feedback for that package even entering rawhide? Because if they are not testing it properly and it breaks something for me, I
Okay.
have no way to prevent that package from getting to rawhide.
All right.
I told the body several months ago that body should be also in the rawhide to be able to create the builds.
Okay.
I cannot create my builds. I know it will be built somewhere better than to get it.
Sure.
Go to Ralph now.
Yeah. The other question was, they pushed wanting to enable Bodhi for rawhide in order to gate builds to ensure that they get through. We may want to automate to at some point go to a Bodhi model, but a lot of this comes back to here where I kind of skimmed over it. We've got ResultsDB in Fedora today, which stores the results of everything from Taskatron and other systems. So if we wanted to work out a way to enable people that are running external CI infrastructure to provide results, we could talk to infrastructure, we could work out a way to do that. A lot of this is going to be implemented in the Factory 2.0 stuff that Ralph Bean is running. So his talk covers how all the Factory 2.0 stuff works. I kind of skipped a large part of that. But it was yesterday.
Go watch that talk yesterday.
Yeah. So you should watch the video from Ralph's talk from yesterday to get the overview of how Factory 2.0 is going to work and how the CI and stuff integrates into there. I think that it would be a good thing for people if they're running their own CI to provide the results back. We may even look at having Bodhi enabled everywhere, but with Bodhi today is slow and painful. You've got the 2 weeks. If we put those same restrictions in rawhide, everyone would just complain and it wouldn't be good. It needs to be automated so that we run the checks. The checks need to be fairly quick, and then we let it in or we kick it out. But without without that automation in running the tests and having the CI and getting it in, it's it's not going to work.
But it's why we need some kind of API to share the results with you.
Right. There is an API. It's Fed message.
For that, you want to get your result into ResultsDB. So we got to figure out where your system is and whether we can trust it, and we should. Let's talk because I haven't thought about how to improve the CI.
Okay.
Otherwise, stuff might break. Even that would help, I think.
Sure. So the comment was that having Bodhi could allow you to batch a group of, say, 5 packages that need to be updated together. At least my thought of that is that we would have testing that checks that, say, the base package that you have to build first, when you build that, there would be a breakage in the package that we detect, and we would automatically or rebuild the rest of them, or we would set up something so that it would go, hey, you know what, this is broken. We would set up a side tag, move it over to the side. I'm going to be filing an RFE for Koji to make the cost of side tags really inexpensive, because they're really expensive today. Every time like when GNOME comes along and says, we want a GNOME tag for F26, for the first run through, it has to read through 50,000 RPMs across every single architecture to make that repo. And then every time you update, it checks to see if any of the files that are in that repo have changed. It's a really expensive, clunky process. So we need to have ways where we can make that quicker and cheaper, because it takes like 10, 15 minutes, about 10 minutes, I think, to run create repo through everything, because it's just checking so many files, and it's a really slow, clunky process. No, he's not, but I told him already.
When we have like these reveals, like Python 3.6
Mhm.
got pushed to rawhide, we have a lot of packages that have breaks.
Right.
But if you have like an automated system and you are waiting for all the packages to be fixed,
Mhm.
that could take months, because a lot of upstreams are like, oh, we don't care about Python 3.6 again.
Yep.
And many today still do
Right.
not care about Python 3.5, because they are like, the majority of these are still shipping to the 3.4.
Sure.
So how can we manage?
Okay. So the question was about, like when Python 3.6 landed, there was a lot of stuff that's broken, and it takes months to deal with all the fallout of that. The way we deal with it is that, like today you have to file a, ticket in RelEng, we make a side tag, you build the Python, you build the other things, and at some point we merge it in. And we kind of did it. Python 3.6 ended up being rushed and caused a lot more breakage than things normally do. But what we would do is you would just do your build of Python 3.6, and then the CI would detect that, the provides for Python 3 changed, and we now have this whole new surname, and there's 5,000 packages depend on that previous surname. So we're going to set up the policy engine, which comes into the Factory 2.0 in the slide. The policy engine piece would detect, talk to results DB and say, hey, this thing just changed, which causes all this breakage. And we would then set up the side tag. We would rebuild all the things. The CI would determine, or the policy engine would determine at which point, or a piece talking to the policy engine would determine at which point we're going to move that side tag into the main distribution. And it'll be based on, making sure the Anaconda runtime is complete and functional, making sure that workstation is complete and functional, making sure that server is complete and functional, making sure that atomic host is complete and functional, and Docker, the Docker base image and the pieces that we care about. And then potentially looking at like the outer ring of stuff as well. So like, we may say we don't want to have the labs be broken, we don't want to have the spins be broken either. But the things that are on the far edge are the ones that, we care about them less, not because we don't care about the packages, but because the brokenness in them affects a lot less people. I mean, it's a bad experience for the people using it, but there has to be a point where we say, the core pieces, the things that 99% or 95% of the people use is functional. That we then bring it in. But we'll enable like repos on the side, so if you wanted to opt into the new Python stack, you could do that because we would make that repo available of the packages.
That means effectively that you are breaking a lot of user flows, because it's like if you have out of 5,000 packages, 2,000 that are core, so out, and 1,000 make that broken. I mean, these 1,000 packages will have a lot of users.
The,
Type of user, but still there will be users that maybe use those packages for their jobs.
So we have that problem today.
Yes.
Yeah,
with rawhide.
we have that same problem today with rawhide and with stable releases when people bump anything in a stable release. We'll be filing bugs automatically. As we hit the issues, we'll need to deal with them. But I strongly suspect that we're not going to hit that many issues where, like if libICU or ICU, gets a major version bump, it changes its name, but every version of ICU changes its API. So in that case, like everything that builds against that needs to be patched in order to deal with the new, ICU. And there's other packages like that where we need to provide a mechanism to say, this thing is really critical. We need all, it's kind of the rings definition. There's going to be some outlying stuff that sometimes is going to be broken. We have that today. We still ship, like Fedora 25 shipped with a whole bunch of broken dependencies in the everything repo. It's not going to be a perfect solution, but we should be aiming at something that for 90-95% of the people is going to be working all the time. In the cases of, we do a Python bump and half the stuff is still broken, well then we probably don't want to merge that over. We may say, it's a quarter of the stuff, and none of that stuff is anything that is in any of the core pieces. So, people will hopefully run rawhide on, production systems and stuff like that, and, we would hope that we don't break them, but that gives, the incentive or, we need to give the notifications. We need a lot more work on Fedora notification setup to enable, like when, we run the CI on live CDs and stuff to, get the notification back. One of the biggest issues with Atomic Host today is that when stuff breaks, they don't know about it because they're not paying attention all the time. Yeah.
How is that different from the Debian notion of unstable testing stable?
It's probably not a lot different to the Debian notion of unstable testing and stable. I would hope that the difference would be that unstable is more stable than, like the rawhide is more stable than Debian unstable. And all the Debian developers will want to come use Fedora because they get their things and it suits their needs.
I recommend that if you have a testing set up with those core packages in not named rawhide, not named rawhide testing or something, or rawhide certified.
Sure.
So you will have those rawhide users using the certified rawhide basically, instead of having rawhide users which are using now directly upstream stuff which may not work, but those developers or maintainers are not able to test it before they upstream into the rawhide. So there's a problem that they want to break the stuff to force other developers to fix their stuff. So
Right. So the comment was about by making rawhide be stable and keeping the broken things out, it won't let the developers know that they're breaking other people's work and forcing them to have to fix the issues. Yes and no, because you can still push things, and if it's broken, we need to make sure the notifications go out right, that bugs get filed, and not that it just sits there on the side indefinitely. The output needs to be available for people to consume, so we need to have repos that are, like in Koji, and there might be 20, 30, 40, 100 different repos at any given time for rawhide, where you could, if you want to, say upstream's broken something in an update and you need to port your app against it, you can get the rawhide build of your library that you're linking against.
that's your rawhide testing basically. That's what
kind of rawhide testing, but it's not going to be, like rigid like updates testing is. It's more dynamic and more flexible. Yeah.
So this slide mentioned the side tags.
Mm-hmm.
How hard is it now, and it will make it easier for somebody to like enable the side tags packages with DNF or something?
It's a matter of dropping a .repo file in place that points at the location on Koji packages. It's really simple to enable any of the Koji repos. They're in the mock config by default. So we could probably, right, we can look at having a DNF plugin where you say, I want to enable this, this extra repo from Koji, and similar to the, to the copper. It won't be a, terribly hard or expensive thing in order to enable that on user systems. Up the back.
Since I deployed 5.3.6 recently, rawhide and some stuff, I just wanted to say a small remark regarding the side tags. Basically, how they work currently, it's not really possible to basically either fix everything or not break rawhide. With this kit, how it works, I do not actually push everything and then make a side build pretty much. But it's actually not really possible, especially with Python, to not break, I don't know, like 2,000 or more packages actually now in Python. So building 2,000 packages on a side tag on a very small time frame,
Mm-hmm.
and then pushing rawhide, it's impossible to not break it.
Right.
So either it will be, I don't know, a side is kit or something,
Mm-hmm.
and so we will have more time with the side tag, or
Yeah.
rawhide will break, but
Okay.
it's not currently working, and I don't think it's really possible.
So the comment was about side tags and dist-git, where today it's quite difficult to work. Side tags are intended today to be very short-lived in that because if you do a build against the side tag in a package in dist-git, and then the package maintainer comes along next week and does another build before you've merged your side tag, you then need to rebuild it against the side tag again because of the complexities of that. And a lot of that is going to be dealt with the modularity work that's going on, where we're likely not going to have a F28 branch or F27 branch. Well, we'll probably have an F27 branch, but we may never have an F28 branch in dist-git. Instead, we'll go to, like for the Python case, we'll have a Python, 3.6 branch. We'll have a Python 3.7 branch. And the branching structure will be different. And if we could potentially, for doing the mass rebuilds, we could say we're going to make this short-lived or temporary, set of branches. We do the build from the side branch and merge it back in once, everything gets merged over. Or maybe it doesn't even need to be. We just, make a new branch for, say, like Python requests. We make a, Python 3.6 Python request branch or something like that. Yes, Adam.
I just want to really emphasize that everyone in this room should go and watch Ralph's talk.
Yeah. A lot of this was covered in Ralph's talk.
In terms of the current Fedora infrastructure, no, all of this new, shiny, better stuff is being planned. Dennis isn't talking about just doing different stuff with the current infrastructure. There's a whole bunch of stuff being planned and built. Things are going to look very different. You really want to watch that.
But to that specific point, imagine dist-git, but with tagger over top, so you submit pull requests on packages instead of actually pushing, and then you build from the side tag requests.
But I'm aware of these things, but we are thinking about how things work actually now. So
Ralph, your paper is very shiny. What is the timeline of this actually having an impact on Fedora for real in like 30 seconds?
Fedora engineering team is working on the tagger on top of dist-git, so that part will be coming very soon. The root to test run CI, that I imagine that happens before 27.
So,
F27 alpha timeline.
F27 alpha is never going to exist.
It's actually on the schedule right now.
Yeah. Yeah, our plan is to
F27 alpha will not exist.
yeah, that's what we're planning on, is no F27 alpha. We do better, we do final, we're done. So just want to, I'll get to you in a sec. I just want to reiterate what Ralph had said. So the Pega on dist-git work is currently underway and should be live fairly soon. And the Taskatron to ResultsDB integration work is very close behind as well. And ResultsDB back to see, yeah. It's all the infrastructure stuff is coming, and it will be there in a F27 timeline because Ralph is going to make it so.
And you said that you want to switch to Git per package like Python 3.6, 3.8 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
How is that different from if the Fedora, instead of now like supporting only one version of the library, would support multiple versions of the same project? So at the same
Right.
time, you would have to be able to use the old stable and the new unstable.
Sure. So the question was, with the different branching, would we have the ability to have the old version and a new version of something available? Maybe. A lot of that comes down to the modularity work that Stephen Gallagher's been working on, and his talk covers a lot of how they envision that working. Or actually, it wasn't his. It was Peter from the modularity. His talk on day one covers a lot of how they're envisioning, the module life, and like different modules are anticipated to have different end of lives, and there's a lot of work going on there to manage that. It may be a possibility that we could have, different versions of the same library in the same Fedora release.
Fedora doesn't want to support multiple versions. It's like forcing developers to switch to the new library. So it's been like pushing the stuff forward. So now it's like different.
It's different, and it need to be presented to FESCO, and they need to decide on what will be allowed and what won't be allowed. But it could be a possibility to have multiple versions of multiple Python stacks or Perl or whichever. Sorry. The question was essentially, would it be possible in the new world with the multiple branches to have different versions of the same thing in Fedora? In Fedora on the same system? Yeah. Well, I mean, on the same system today, without RPM changes, you wouldn't be able to easily do that. So, but you could have different versions in Fedora that you could have in different containers very easily. I wouldn't say we could never support it, but there's technical.
It's one copy of everything, so I'm not sure it's more efficient than having.
No.
Sounds like software versions for multiple containers and stuff.
There was another talk on exactly this, the modularity talk, which covers all of this ground. So
The modularity talk covers a lot of the stuff around dealing with different versions and modules in the end of life. So, I mean, this is really more about bringing like the modularity stuff, the factory stuff, all together, and the real-world impact of what that will be in Fedora. I'm not the expert in how modularity stuff works. I'm, the person that gets Fedora out the door. Yes, Tomasz. Question is, how many people use rawhide today? Can we get a show of hands? There's a.
Everybody who uses rawhide today is in this room.
Except for Kevin. All the rawhide users except for Kevin Fenzi are here today. There's a decent amount of people who use rawhide. For the most part, it works really well. I heard an anecdote today of a large corporation who has their installation infrastructure running on rawhide for installing Fedora releases and CentOS 6 and 7 from the one installation.
Laura comments that right now we do test rawhide every day. We send out a mail that says exactly how it's working. And it does usually kind of work. It's nowhere near this vision, but we do have daily tests, automated testing of rawhide that covers quite a lot of ground installation.
Okay, and I've just been told that's all the time we have, so thank you all very much.
About the Buddha, because
issues.